All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to warmly introduce Ben from the Elite Milers, who's going to be speaking with Mr. Leo Manzano, once again a 2012 Olympic 1500 silver medalist. They're here right now. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for them. Here's the gentleman. Go, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys for being here. My name is Ben. I live here on Maui. I work with a fitness company called One Fitness. And thank you, Leo, for being here. Leo's coming all the way from Austin, Texas, which is where he lives and trains. He's, as Mike mentioned, a 2012 Olympic silver medalist. He's also a multiple-time Team USA athlete. How many years is it now that you've been a Team USA athlete?
It's been 7 years.
7-time Team USA athlete. Hardest team in the world to make, really, for world championships or Olympic events. And Leo's been to 2 Olympics. Just missed making the 2016 Rio Olympics this year. He's also run 350 in the mile. So if you're a miler, this guy's a stud. He's really fast. So I guess the first thing I want to ask Leo, I'm curious, just a little bit more about your background, where you grew up, what got you into running when you first got into running, and then how it progressed.
Absolutely. So, I feel like I've been a runner all my life. I mean, obviously I wasn't, a trained runner all my life, but, looking back to my humble beginnings, I'm originally from a small town from Guanajuato, Mexico, and I remember running with my grandfather, and actually while we were herding sheep, we would be out in the field, and I would challenge him to races, and obviously he would always beat me. And that's where I grew up, and I started running, training to run when I was like 12 or 13 in the 7th grade. And my first day of practice, I wore jeans, hiking boots, and a dress shirt. And that's obviously because I didn't know what running was about. Yeah, so, I was very fortunate to have had some great people along the way. My middle school coach, not too long after, actually gave me shoes and apparel, which I'm so thankful and so grateful to her for, allowing me and giving me that opportunity. So then I went on into high school. I was very fortunate to have won 9 state championships and then earn a scholarship at the University of Texas.
I wanted to learn more about your Olympic experience in both Beijing and London, and then, of course, being a medalist and on the podium in 2012 must have been, I would imagine, one of the most special experiences of your life. Could you tell us a little bit more about both your experiences as an Olympian and then as a medalist?
Absolutely, Ben. So my first year in the Olympics was in 2008. And again, it'd been a progression, So when I went to college, I was the first person in my family to have ever gone to college. So that was kind of interesting. And then I was the first person in my family to be a Division I athlete. And then running for the university gave me a lot of opportunities. And so I went into being a multiple national champion in college, and then I was able to go into the Olympic trials in 2008, and I made my first Olympic team. So that was crazy for me. I mean, that was such an experience. It was a great opportunity. The 2008 Olympics were in Beijing, and I was 23 at the time. I was one of the youngest athletes there. And so I come in, very inexperienced, but I was ready to run. I was ready, we make it through the first round, and then we make it into the second round, where, I faced some very tough competition. Needless to say, I finished at that point 12th in the world. And then 4 years later, obviously there was a lot of work that had to be done to achieve another Olympics. We went through many trials and tribulations. I would say, one of the years was 2011 was really hard for me. I got injured 7 times. So, but what we have to take away from that is that, you actually learn a lot from your defeats and your failures. So we took a lot away from 2011 and incorporated it into 2012. And that in 2012, I had just the most amazing year of my life. I was almost undefeated that year. And, came in, you look at my stature, I'm 5'5", so I'm racing guys that are 6'5", and, I'm kind of the underdog, nobody really thinks I'm going to do anything at that point, and, in London, in the race, with, 400 meters to go, you look at me, and I'm in, second to last, third to last, with my medal contention just kind of fading, not even thinking that I even have a chance or a possibility of doing anything. And at that moment in time, you start thinking back, it's like the moments of pain, so when you're running, you start thinking, it's like, hey, what inspires you to continue? And for me, that was my family, and I started thinking back, just about all the sacrifices that I had done just kind of throughout the years just to be there in that moment in time. And definitely my family really inspired me. And so it was as though my body and mind reconnected. And, I started, as they say, you move your arms, you move your legs. And I started going, and I started to pass athletes. And as I started to pass athletes, it was as though I would gain more momentum. And as I gained more momentum, I'd pass more athletes. With 200 meters to go, I'm passing on the curve. If you know, you're normally not supposed to pass on the curve, but I'm passing on the curve, and here I come. And 100 meters left in the race to go. I'm in 6th place. And in that moment in time, it was as though time stood still. And I thought to myself, if I pass 3 more guys, I could be in medal contention. I kind of prayed to myself and asked God for help and made one last final push, passed a few more athletes. I fell to the ground. I was exhausted, and then I started crying tears of joy because that's when I knew I'd won a silver medal.
That's an extremely special moment, and I think we all just felt a little bit of that emotion that must have been overwhelming when you crossed the finish line in 2nd place. Wonderful. What do you recommend drinking leading up to and perhaps during a race? I know it's different for different distances, but curious to hear your thoughts on hydration.
Yeah, Ben, so the first thing I would say is, it's a week-long process. It really is. To run at your best, you have to look at it. I look it out, a week out, I'm hydrating, I'm incorporating the right fuel as well. For me, I like to do Powerade. Also, if I feel like Powerade's not enough, sometimes you can also look into electrolytes. That's, you can sometimes find that at the pharmacy. But also make sure you drink plenty of water. There's really no, there's no substitute for water. Water is just incredible. But also, if you do need some more electrolytes, Powerade or something like Powerade is actually the best thing that you can do. Again, it's a week process. I know that a lot of you here are here for vacation, and sometimes you may be out by the pool and having a margarita or a Mai Tai, excuse me. If you're in Texas, it's margarita. We're in Hawaii, so it's Mai Tais. But if that's the case, if you're a little bit behind on your hydration, it's never too late. Just get on. You definitely have to get on some kind of electrolyte, Powerade, or something like that would be perfect. Yeah.
Do you have any specific recovery techniques that you use? Cryotherapy is another one that a lot of people throw in there. And I know that for elites, it's probably at a higher level than your average weekend warrior. But maybe you could give some tips for the average person, as well as share some insight into what you do for recovery, specifically post-workout and post-race.
Absolutely. So in terms of recovery, I've actually used all of those. But I would say, there's really, again, there's no substitution for actually manual manipulation. Some massage once a week. Get your massage. I do have one recommendation in terms of massage. Like, don't get massage usually before a hard workout or a hard race, because what it does, it makes you super tired, and then also it's a lot of muscle atrophy. So you could actually get hurt. So maybe 2 to 3 days out. Or even after a hard session, after a hard race, that's the perfect time to do massage. Also, in terms of foam rolling, maybe a little bit far out from the race, maybe the day before is fine. Again, don't go too deep. It's got to be very light. Stretching, so you do your foam rolling or massage, and then you go into a stretch. Also, if you do get massage, make sure to continue hydrating, because that kind of it's also kind of dehydrates you, since your system has to go through this process, So.
Let's move on to shoes. I know shoes are a huge thing for a lot of different runners, and everyone has their own preferences. Leo happens to run professionally and is sponsored by a company called Hoka One One. They're a great shoe company. They make very cushioned shoes. You can see the shoes that he's wearing here. And I wanted to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on shoe recommendations for maybe different distances, what you prefer, what you look for in a shoe, and perhaps what some of the athletes and competitors here this weekend should look for, whether they're running the mile, the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, or even the full marathon, knowing that different shoes work for different circumstances, and different training styles require different shoes, different gaits require different shoes, different feet require different shoes. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you have to say about footwear and your recommendations for all runners.
Absolutely. So I guess the first thing that I'll say is that everybody's made differently. So, what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you, although, what we do is kind of more of a recommendation and kind of a guide, into the types of training that we do. So, for example, for mile, 800 meter, even up to 5K type training, I would recommend the Hoka Evo. I mean, it's for training purposes, if you're on the track, to get some kind of more or less some rhythm into your running, I would recommend the Hoka Evo R. Also, the Hoka Tracer. I mean, that shoe. I mean, that's a great running shoe. It's a little bit more firm. So for people that like a little bit more of a firmer feel, the Hoka Tracer it's great for any distance. Now, in terms of when you are on asphalt or on the roads, the Hoka Clifton. I mean, that shoe is superb. I mean, it's got that cushioning. It's also very responsive, and so it's a shoe that's going to save your feet. I mean, for myself, I always feel, even though I'm maybe pounding a lot, that specific shoe, that's a winner for me.
Any training secrets that you can share with us from your many years of experience competing at this extremely high level? That could be workout tips to just experience with injury and coming back from it. Whatever you think would be useful for a weekend warrior athlete and of course a high level professional like yourself.
Absolutely. So there is no substitution for having fun, like keeping it fresh, keeping it cool, like enjoying yourself. I mean, that's what's gonna give you that longevity in the sport or in running. Also, obviously, you got to take care of your body. So having the proper shoes, is always a plus. But also, one of the things that I like to do is if my body is extremely beat up, we do ice bath or contrast bath. Actually, studies have actually shown that contrast baths are great for recovery purposes. Also, if you feel super beat up, if you don't like the ice bath, you can also do a little cheat. It's called an Epsom salt bath. If you've never had an Epsom salt bath for sore muscles or for swelling, Epsom salt bath, I mean, it's just amazing. So that's one of my cheats.
Just a nice little caveat here in Maui, we're lucky enough to have ocean as well, which has salt in it. And while it may not be as specific as an Epsom salt bath, if you don't have Epsom salt with you, you didn't bring anything of that with you, the ocean's another really good alternative, similar to what Leo mentioned. And jumping in the ocean after a long, hot half marathon or even 5K or 10K or mile feels pretty awesome. One last question for you, Leo. We know that race strategy is kind of important depending on the distance, depending on your fitness level, weather conditions. Do you have any specific racing advice or even motivational advice for people as they train?
Absolutely, Ben. So, I guess the first thing I would say is, you have to go back and you look at your training. You're here, you've done the work. Now it's just all about implementation. You're ready, like mentally, hey, you've done all the work, you've done all the sacrifice, now it's time to perform. One of the recommendations that I do have is go on your pace, like stay on pace, don't try to overdo yourself the first couple miles. That's always tough. It's easy to get excited. It's easy to, take on that adrenaline and just go. But, it's actually a lot better to hold back slightly and then kind of move up slowly as you go, instead of going out full force and then all of a sudden not feeling so hot, midway through the race. I would also say, find some running partners, find some friends. If you don't have a friend, find one. Find a person that you can run with. Even if it's along the race, trade off. Trade off leads, especially when it's windy. Maybe you do a mile or they do a mile, and then go back and forth and work together. For people that have teams, run together, especially in a distance that's this long, this far. There's no substitution for running. You can run by yourself if you feel great, but also in these distances, it's always great to have people there.
Does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask? You do? Sure, yeah. Go ahead and come up to the mic. We can have you introduce yourself.
After the race, you have about 30 minutes where you should refuel with food. And I usually can't eat for like a couple hours after the race. So is that really important to do to like recover?
I want to say that it's going to kind of depend on the person. I think that you definitely have to get something in your system. It's always good. You don't necessarily have to have a big meal, but I mean, have you ever looked into like a protein shake or something similar? You know, and again, some people's stomachs can be very delicate afterwards. You know, so maybe finding maybe an easy vitamin water or something similar to that, so that way you can slowly start that refueling process and that recovery process. You know, even I don't know, have you ever like usually bananas afterwards are great, you know, so and it's usually lighter on your stomach as well.
Hey man, it's John. Wondering what maybe your favorite workout is, build up as well as maybe race specific.
So John was asking, in case the audio was unclear, what Leo's favorite workout is, or a race-specific workout that is one of Leo's favorites. So thank you, John.
Yeah, so you know, being a runner, I think there's several workouts that I just absolutely love, and you know, in different times of my season, I know that I need a certain workout. So one of those workouts for me is the 6 by 1,000 meters, and that's just usually to gain strength and also like knowledge on pace. You know, so that way I know where I'm at during the race, or if I do that specific workout, I know that I can run at a certain level, you know, during the race. Also, sometimes for myself, you know, I do a lot of speed work. So, you know, like a 12 by 400 or, you know, 9 by 300 or something similar, that type of workout lets me know. So I also train the anaerobic, I guess, the anaerobic capacity in my body. So then what I do is like that specific workout also lets me know that I can, you know, I can endure a certain pace during the race. And it gives me a lot of confidence. When you are hurting within the race, you think back of all the things that you've done, and that's what's gonna inspire you to continue. Now, in terms of workouts, you know, usually you know, 2 to 3 weeks out, they can be pretty intense. You know, and again, that's going to usually vary on what type of race they're doing. You know, I'm sure that, you know, for the marathon, it's usually for more like moderate tempos, longer runs. You know, usually even like 10 miles, the 2-hour runs and all that. But usually about a week out, I mean, you know, again, all the work's in the bag, and it's just time to recover and prepare mentally for the race.
Rudy, the race director of the Maui Marathon, just got here as well. So Rudy's been a really big help here in bringing Leo out. His company, Runner's Paradise, as well as the Maui Marathon and Half Marathon, and the Maui Mile, the Front Street Mile, have been very generous in bringing out elite athletes for the last several years. This year being an Olympic year, we don't have any elites running a race, but Leo was gracious enough to give us his time and come out here for kind of a vacation at the end of his season. He's put in a lot of hard work, and I wanted to specifically thank Rudy Huber and Runner's Paradise, as well as the Maui Marathon, for bringing Leo out and having him stay here at the Western Resort, which I think he's enjoying pretty thoroughly. I know I'm enjoying time with him, and I think he'd say the same, so thank you, Rudy, for that.
Ben, again, it's been a pleasure. Just want to thank you and the Maui Marathon for allowing me to be here. You know, I do have one thing for the runners is, you know, when you're out there and you're running, you know, and you're hurting, you know, think back on what motivates you, or, you know, what inspires you. And for me, sometimes, you know, there's certain words, certain phrases that I keep in my mind. And for myself, you know, there's a phrase that's one moment of pain for a lifetime of glory. Like that one's always in my mind, you know, and that it's a, you know, it's a mantra. So if you have a mantra, you know, and when you're hurting, when you're in pain, you know, you think about that, and that's what's going to kind of motivate you to kind of take it to the next level. And I guess with that, you know, I just want to wish everybody luck, no matter the distance. So best of luck to you. Go get them. You know, fight hard, and at the end of the day, just have fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you for attending, and thank you, Leo, on behalf of One Fitness. I really appreciate your time and all the time that you've given us here, and we look forward to interacting with you guys off stage in a more personal way. Thank you for being here. And thanks to Shoots Productions as well for filming the event. Appreciate it.